tonight's game. I currently have a what is it? I got multiple parlays. So I have a 7-team parlay. That's Commanders plus 12.5, Chargers plus 8.5, Packers plus 6, Chiefs money line, Giants money line, Dolphins money line, and the under in that Broncos Tennessee game. So for me, I'm riding on those Commanders. And what do I do? Of course I hedge. You know, that's supposed to pay out at about $450 for me on a $20 bet. So what I do? I took the Eagles at minus 9.5, put $100 on it. Either way, I'm going to come out in the cash. Hopefully, I really get it good, and the Eagles win by 10. That's definitely kind of the play I'm hoping for tonight. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but that's definitely where my money is.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that too. When you get in a situation like that where you can hedge and go back the other way and just ensure that you have money coming to the table, that's smart.
One of the things a friend of mine does, he's a trader on Wall Street, and so he's accustomed to building spreadsheets and trying to model his way to success. And actually, what he'll do is he'll take a lot of the bets that he tails from me, and he'll put it into a spreadsheet every week. And as he watches the games, he'll monitor where the line action is going off at certain books, so he can hedge against his bets. So if a team gets out to an early start in the first quarter and he's got a lot of money on the team that's favored, he can spread it around, hedge himself a little bit. And that's something that's nice to do, be able to monitor where your bets are throughout the day, because so much action goes on and there are opportunities to make money off of Vegas. You just have to know that the opportunity is there. So, hey, Bleece, what's happening, man? How you doing tonight?
What's up, everybody? Just hanging out and yeah, getting set up here in the Metaverse studio where we're also hanging out. So yeah, just setting up. I think this game is going to be a lot closer. I do see the Commanders covering here.
Speaking of Commanders and covering, like we always do, and we're going to do again, just again more casual. Washington Commanders 4-5, Eagles 8-0. This one's on ESPN, of course. I think there is a Manning cast tonight, so you can have your choice of broadcasts. The Eagles are an 11-point favorite where I saw it. The over/under 43.5 points, and a couple gambling trends for everyone. The Commanders are 3-0-1 against the spread in their last 4 games overall. The Eagles are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 home games. The Commanders are 1-3-1 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Philadelphia. The over is 6-2 against. The over is 6-2 in the last 8 meetings between the two in Philadelphia, and the under is 5-1 in the Eagles' last 6 Monday night games. One of the reasons I brought up the trends that I did, obviously, I go to covers.com. That's the website that I get my trends from. It's a great company, great website. Highly recommend it to everybody. But a few trends that stood out to me. One, Taylor Heineke. I saw this actually on ESPN earlier. He's 8-8, or rather, the Commanders are 8-8 in the starts that he has, and they're like 8-19 when it's another quarterback over the last 3 years. Last couple of weeks, they're 2-1 record. They're 3-0 against the spread with Heineke in the game. He brings a dynamic to the offense that, funny enough, Carson Wentz didn't. He's a much better passer. I think he's got better chemistry with Samuel and with Terry McLaurin. So that's one reason to Bleece's comment. I like the Commanders to cover. The thing that makes me a little bit hesitant was that Commanders are 1-3-1 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Philadelphia. Something about the Commanders going up to the link, they just haven't performed well. And I know 11 points is a lot to get. I've mentioned this in other spaces. When divisional opponents play each other and the spread is more than a touchdown, the odds that the underdog wins goes off at like 65, or covers rather, goes off at 65%, something like that. And so there's a lot of reasons that I like the Commanders tonight, but there is something about playing in Philadelphia in prime time. Tough place to play. Lope, Yig, one of our friends from Philadelphia, who is a great representative of the devils, monsters, and hellions that are in Philly. What do you think the atmosphere is going to be like tonight? And do you think that has any bearing on the performance of the Commanders?
Definitely, it's very loud. It's very ruckusy, and I think the Eagles are one of the best home teams. I haven't looked at their record, but they don't lose a lot at home.
Well, they're obviously undefeated this year at home. We can
Yeah,
guarantee that. But they are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 home games.
right. So yeah, it's definitely going to be hard for Washington. It is a lot of points, and these big spreads just it's hard to surpass it. But if there's one team to do it, it would be the undefeated Eagles. And then the other thing I was going to say is what you were saying about parlays and such. I've been going to more teasers now, even though it's lesser odds to add like 6 points to a game that you think, and especially with how close games have been this year in the NFL, I've had a lot of success with teasers.
Where do you go to place your bets, Lo?
I mostly use DraftKings Sportbook.
Do you like it?
Yeah, it's very instant and fast, and there's always like little promos and boosts they hand out. So, I mean, that's where I'm usually looking.
I've been using Bovada for years. This isn't an endorsement of Bovada until they pay me money. I've liked the platform, but really it was because I had access to it at times when sports gambling was not as accessible throughout the country. And so I just naturally went to it, and I've stayed loyal to it. Obviously, I've done well, so there's not much incentive for me to get out. But I am thinking about expanding into a DraftKings or a FanDuel for a number of reasons. You can't, one, Bovada doesn't allow you to parlay player props. And to the example of yesterday, when I'm hitting 7 out of 10 player props, man, I would have loved to have parlayed those. Those odds would have been really strong in my favor. I probably could have gotten, like a 10x multiple on what I was putting down on my bet. That just would have been a great return. So I want to kind of find ways to get into that. And second, I find that Bovada so often creates situations in which I have to get odds at certain times, and I don't really like that. Like, I feel like DraftKings and FanDuel, the line movement is stronger, where Bovada kind of sets in at times and works against me, and that's one of the reasons I am looking to switch. But interesting that you like DraftKings. Are you a daily fantasy player, Lope?
I play a little bit, but I wouldn't say a whole lot.
Okay, then here's my question for you for tonight's game. If you had to pick a quarterback to have better daily fantasy stats, would you rather have Jalen Hurts or Taylor Heineke? Now, I know that that seems like an obvious question. Jalen Hurts, MVP candidate. Taylor Heineke is a backup who's now in a starting role. But given how the offenses are, likely to play tonight, the Commanders are going to have to throw the ball to stay in the game, where the Eagles could easily run right down the Commanders' throat and win this game, and Jalen Hurts doesn't have to put up big stats. Loeb, do you think Taylor Heineke could actually outperform, statistically at least, Jalen Hurts tonight?
Oh, well, I hope not, because I got a lot of Jalen Hurts player props. But it's definitely possible. He seems to be comfortable with the offense, and he can spread it around. And like you said, I would assume the Eagles are going to run the ball a whole lot. So he definitely has a chance to.
One player prop, we'll obviously talk about a bunch of them over the next half hour. But one player prop I do have my eye on is Miles Sanders' anytime touchdown. He has a touchdown in his last 3 games, and if I stretch it a little bit farther, he has 5 touchdowns in his last 5 weeks. So clearly, when they're in the red zone, he gets opportunities. I feel like he'll get opportunities tonight. I do have player props as well on anytime touchdowns for A.J. Brown, but I've paired that with anytime touchdown and an Eagles win, because otherwise your odds are at like minus 150. It's not great. You bump that up to, say, like plus 170, plus 155, I think, once you get it on anytime touchdown and the game winner parlay. Adam, what's a parlay that you like tonight?
So I had the Commanders plus 11 right off the bat. I took them earlier in the week when it was 10, 10 and a half, went to 11. It came back down, and then I think it's back to 11 now. So I have the Commanders plus 11, and mainly for the same reason why I took Minnesota. I think Minnesota and Washington are 2 very similar teams. Obviously, Minnesota is much better, but they hang around. Washington hangs in games. All Minnesota did yesterday was just hang around that game and give themselves a shot. And it's the same thing with Washington. The last 5 games, Washington has been in 20-17, 17-16, 23-21. 12-7 and 21-17. So it's not pretty. It's ugly football at times, but they find a way to hang around. I think one thing Washington will probably do is we talked yesterday a little bit about is try to do a little bit of ball control offense. They have Robinson and Gibson pretty much healthy now for the first time all year. So both their player props, rushing yards, are set at 35.5. I could see either one of those guys, if not both, going over that number, trying to keep the ball away from Jalen Hurts. Philly's good rush defense is 20th in the league, so it's middle level in the league. So I think there's a possibility that Robinson and Gibson couldn't get their touches. I think you're right though. If Washington falls behind, they're going to have to start throwing the football. So I think the first half is when you'll see a lot of those numbers for the running backs. I think get to that point, and then also McLaurin. He's been coming on the last couple of weeks now. He's been back, and I like an anytime touchdown with him. I believe plus 230 is what I saw that at. So I think that's probably not a bad play, especially Washington has to throw the football to get back in the game. I think Terry McLaurin could be a good anytime touchdown at plus 230.
I like that Terry McLaurin play. I would say it's interesting because, first of all, I love the Brian Robinson over total rushing yards. I saw that too. I was surprised it was in the 30s. I thought that easily could go up to like 42.5, maybe even 45. I think the Commanders are going to have to run the ball. And I think Ron Rivera is a smart enough and disciplined enough head coach where he's not going to be chasing specialty plays. It's going to be a meat and potatoes kind of game in my mind. You know, a very classic 85 Bears. I'm going to run the ball. I'm going to own time of possession. I hope my defense does enough, maybe gets a turnover. If nothing else, you know, limits the number of points, even if they give up yards. But I'm going to rely on my running backs as much as I'm going to rely on my passing game. And for that reason, I actually took Taylor Heineke under total passing attempts. I want to double check it because I saw it going off. I thought it was going off at like 33.5. I think that's right. And when I go to one of the things I like to do is I do like to go to their game logs and just see the trends that they've had over the last few weeks. In his 3 starts, the most passing attempts Taylor Heineke has had is 33, and it came against the Packers in week 1, or rather in his first start, which was 3 weeks ago. But even when he's throwing the ball, they're still not throwing the ball a lot. So to me, I like the Brian Robinson total rushing yards, and I like Heineke under 33.5 total passing attempts. If this gets to a blowout game, to your point, Adam, yeah, he's just going to be chucking it down the field. But I'm kind of with you. I don't think it's going to be as wide open as we think. I actually think a lot of the reason the line is set this way is the last time we saw the Eagles on Monday was on Monday Night Football. They played the Cowboys, right? Was that a Monday night game or a Sunday night game?
I think that was a Sunday.
Either way, I think
the Monday night one was with the Vikings, I believe.
Man, have the Eagles been in prime time that many times this year already? Wow. That said, that game against the Cowboys in the length, they got out to that massive start. They ended up covering late just because the Cowboys couldn't keep their shit together. And I don't actually think that's going to happen with the Commanders. Again, I think they're going to be way more disciplined. I think they're going to be structured. The only concern I have is an early Taylor Heineke turnover. His over under or his over half an interception player prop is going off at like minus 210. So everyone thinks he's going to throw at least one pick. I hope that comes in the fourth quarter rather than the first quarter, because if the Eagles do get out to a big lead, we know what they can be in the second quarter. They are a juggernaut. They could put up enough points where they're putting a team in the rearview mirror. I don't think it happens tonight, but it's definitely in the back of my mind as I'm placing bets. Looking at some other player props, I do have, like I mentioned, AJ Brown anytime touchdown, but I am avoiding his total receiving yards. What's interesting is you look at his game log stats. He's only had 2 games of over 100 receiving yards this year, and in those 2 games he went off. Week 1 against the Lions, he got 155 yards, and 2 weeks ago against the Steelers, he had that massive 3-touchdown game. He got 156 yards. But other than that, his average total yards is far closer to 70 than it is to 100. I think his total receiving yards tonight is going off at like 77.5. That just seemed a little too high for me. I think the Eagles are going to spread the ball around a little bit more. I actually even like Dallas Goedert in this game a little bit more. I'd like to see Devontae Smith get involved in the offense more than we've seen the last week. So for that reason, I'm not high on A.J. Brown total receiving yards, but I do like him in anytime touchdown. Lope, is there any receiver in this game, Philadelphia or Washington, that you have your eye on?
Scary Terry McLaurin over 51 and a half receiving yards is where I'm at. And now that you mention it, Dallas Goedert, I might take a second look at that. That seems like more where Jalen Hurts may try to go. Ron Rivera he's a smart enough defensive coordinator. He's not gonna let AJ Brown go off. Like you said.
Here's another one for you. I took the under 43 and a half total rushing yards for Jalen Hurts. I don't see him rushing that much in this game. I see him doing it when necessary. But again, I think the Commanders are going to be competitive. I don't think the Eagles are treating this like a game against the Cowboys. I don't think it's all out. I think the Eagles are going to be more conservative to match how conservative the Commanders are going to be. And I think for that reason, I don't see Jalen Hurts breaking big runs. I see him maybe having a couple plays where he goes for 7, 8, maybe 10 yards. Does that all rack up to 43 and a half? I don't think so. And I like that. I got it at minus 115. I thought that was pretty good odds for what it is. Jalen Hurts, if I go to his game log stats, he only has 4 games. Oh, not even. He only has 3 games where he would have topped tonight's total. He hasn't had one of those in a month. So I feel pretty good. In the last 3 weeks, he's had 23, 10, and 27 total rushing yards. So as he's gotten better, as he's emerged as a true MVP candidate, you're seeing he is becoming a more pocket-focused passer. Maybe, still a little bit on the move, but he's becoming more focused as a passer, rather. And the running game is a secondary. That's why I think the rushing yards total might be a nice play tonight. Adam, you're someone who looks at totals. Do you think we're going to get an over-under that's worth playing tonight, or are you avoiding it?
I think I'm avoiding it. I think it goes one of two ways, right? If it's a down and dirty Washington cover game, I think you're solidly in the under. And then, kind of goes without saying, if Philly gets rolling and starts in the second half, starts putting up some points, I think you can lean to the over. But I just don't have a feel for this over-under in this game. I didn't like it really from the start of the week. Other than the plus 11 jumped out at me, but the over-under, I'm just staying away from it tonight.
The two trends I mentioned at the beginning that stood out to me about the total, and it was part of the reason, like you, I'm avoiding it. The over is 6-2 in the last 8 games in Philadelphia. Interesting note. But the under is 5-1 in the Eagles' last 6 Monday night games. And I like both of those trends. They tell me a lot about how the teams perform given the variables of time and location. That's what I'm really looking for to try to get an advantage on Vegas, trying to understand, is time, location playing a bigger role than just the players on the roster? And given that those trends diverge and split the difference, I'm just avoiding it altogether. I also think 43 and a half, it's now moved where I look at Bovada down to 43, but that seems low given what I think of Taylor Heineke. But I'm also so impressed by this Eagles defense. They really are as talented on all 3 layers as they appear to be on paper. And so for that reason, I like obviously the Taylor Heineke interception, but it also makes me go, can the Commanders score 3 touchdowns? Can the Commanders score 20 points? How many points do I give the Commanders before I go, no, the under's the play? I'm probably going to avoid it altogether just because I'm split on it. Lope, do you have any thoughts on the total?
It's the numbers just too good. I don't think it favors us in any way. So yeah, I would stay away. I think it's a good number, and you're probably taking a real big chance either way on the over under. It's going to be right around there.
Okay. ESPN's going on the side. I got the TV on, and they're having a conversation really awkwardly on some steps. I don't know why, but they're having a conversation between Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Jalen Hurts, and Robert Griffin III. What's interesting to me about that is I don't know how Robert Griffin III got so. I know he's a member of Monday Night Football's crew, but I don't know how he got so prominently placed I think people forget how talented Donovan McNabb was. Donovan McNabb was a transcendent player for his time. Him and Steve McNair changed the position in so many ways. And then Michael Vick is truly like a meteor who just flashed across the NFL sky. But it's so interesting to me that, yeah, Robert Griffin III was really, really special for a season. And then, like a great racehorse, he had a leg injury and was never the same. So it's just funny to me that they're giving such prominence to RG3. Obviously, you know, this is how Monday Night Football is going to put together a segment. They're going to have a member of their crew. But I just thought it was funny that, like, Jalen Hurts, don't be like the guy on your left. Don't be like RG3, dude. Try to be like Don McNabb. I'll let you have Michael Vick on the field because he was incredibly talented, especially with the Falcons. But, you know, I go back to the old Sesame Street song, like, one of these things is not like the other. I think that's RG3, dude. I don't think you belong in this group right now.
That's fine. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now RG3 didn't have the backing from his head coach there, and just kept getting the shit kicked out of him every single week, and ultimately led to his demise, I think. But I mean, he was a gamer. He hung in there, but boy, they let him take his shots, man, too long.
In one of my times in sports media, I came up with a show that I wanted to call What Ifs, and the whole idea was to take analytics, put it all together, put the metrics, and recreate some of the great what ifs in sports history. What if LeBron James had gone to college? If he had chosen Ohio State, do they win a national championship, or does UNC the year that he went into the pros? What happens if Michael Jordan misses the flu game? You know, do the Jazz end up winning the finals? RG3 would have been a fascinating what if scenario because, to your point, Shanahan ran him into the ground, literally. Like the turf at FedEx Field, if you remember from that playoff game, was awful. Like it was choppy, ripped up. I mean, just awful sod. And he was on, again, you felt like he was on the skinniest stilt legs. Like every cut he made, you thought he could just like completely tear out a knee. And he inevitably did. And you think about how great a year he did have when we were RG3ing and doing all that stuff. What could have been for him? And taking it one step farther, what could have been for the Washington Commanders? We talk about Dan Snyder, the possibility of him selling the team, the misery that fan base has gone through, their lack of success. Like everything in the NFL, if you have a great quarterback, everything can change. If RG3 hadn't gotten hurt, what if could the Commanders have emerged in the NFC, been a better team? The narrative around Dan Snyder changes, and all of a sudden the Commanders aren't going anywhere, and Dan Snyder's not going anywhere. By the way, if they keep winning, are they the Commanders? Are they still the Redskins? You know, a winning team. Do people want to change the name of a winning team? I don't know. Just questions to be had. And finally, the last one: does Kirk Cousins even happen? You know, Kirk Cousins in so many ways. RG3 is the Wally Pip to Kirk Cousins, Lou Gehrig. I don't want to draw too many comparisons. Lou Gehrig's like one of the greatest athletes of the 20th century. Kirk Cousins is not. But that said, Kirk Cousins' origin story is all about RG3's injury, both why he was drafted and how he got on the field and got successful. Like, you like that would not have happened if RG3 hadn't gotten hurt. So it's amazing to me. I know that segment kind of threw me off into a tangent, but it's funny because RG3 didn't fit in that group. And yet RG3's potential and what he could have been, that would have changed the entire NFL as we know it. Is Kirk Cousins on the Vikings? Are the Commanders, you know, the Commanders? Everything could have been different. All because of, you know, Mike Shanahan just running his quarterback into the ground.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of flack that Shanahan took for grabbing Kirk Cousins in the fourth round after RG3, and then there was talks that he might have not even believed in him. So it's definitely interesting. And then that Commanders coaching staff under Shanahan's pretty famous. I think he's got his son
Sean
Kyle
McVay, Shanahan.
Yeah.
Right. Was LaFleur on that team?
He was. Yep. He was
Wow.
assistant coach.
Now, that said, it's funny because I'm not a big Kyle Shanahan fan. I'm not a big Matt LaFleur fan. So it's like, oh, yeah, all these coaching geniuses, and I really only like one of the three. I think the other two are slightly overrated. But it is, in terms of brand names on a staff, just crazy talented. Putting that out there, If you guys had to pick one of those three guys, LaFleur, McVay, or Shanahan, to be your head coach for one game, which one would you pick?
I'd take Sean McVay if he's invested. It seemed like he wanted to retire, maybe should have, but if he's invested, I'll take him.
Adam, who you taking?
Yeah, I'm taking McVay. He won a Super Bowl. He's been there, and I think he's kind of the head of that coaching tree. I've never been a big Kyle Shanahan guy. I think he's a good coach, but I've never been a big fan of him. And then Matt LaFleur, like I said, I don't mind him the last couple of years in Green Bay, but now we're starting to see the true colors. Is he really a good coach, or did Devontae and Rodgers and some of these other guys mask the deficiencies of his offensive game plan? So it's yet to be seen with LaFleur, but I would take McVay out of those three.
Man, if you ask Aaron Rodgers right now, he's pretty down on the play calling of LaFleur. It's you see those fights on sidelines between a quarterback and a coordinator. For me, it's so bizarre to see it between a quarterback and a head coach. I know that the head coach is also the play caller, but the absolute disrespect to be on national television in a moment where you know the cameras are going to be on you and totally rip your head coach for his play calling in a pivotal moment. It's just one of the reasons Aaron Rodgers is not the guy I would want leading my franchise. I think he puts too many other people under the bus before he sacrifices himself at times. That was certainly a bizarre game yesterday, given he rips his head coach and they still ended up winning. But yeah, going back to that staff in Washington, an incredible collection of talent, and amazing that none of them ended up taking over the program, that it ended up going to Ron Rivera. And those three guys left to enormous success, a Super Bowl win, a Super Bowl appearance, and an NFC championship game appearance. And meanwhile, the Washington Commanders are still trying to piece things together. I have to believe this is Ron Rivera's last year. I think part of the reason he is the head coach of this team is for PR cover for Dan Snyder. I think Ron Rivera is one of the most respected, well-liked people in the NFL. He was as a player. He is as a head coach. He's military. He's diverse. He's eloquent. He's strong. He's well thought of by the media. He is the perfect veil for the Commanders to put out in front to face the public, while Dan Snyder is just a truly despicable person in the front office. And I can't wait for the Commanders to be freed of Dan Snyder. Like, the moment that sale happens, whether it's to Bezos or some other billionaire, it's going to be wonderful to see the Washington Commanders become relevant again. In my lifetime, the Commanders haven't been relevant at all, literally, other than that one season with RG3. I can't think of a time that Washington football had any meaning to me. And Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, they've all won Super Bowls in the last, 2.5 decades. Obviously, the Cowboys, man, it's getting long in the tooth for them. But Washington football, if they ever got good, Washington really is passionate about its football. It would be great for the NFL. It would be great for that community. I am so ready for the exorcism of Dan Snyder to occur.
So is the team officially for sale?
The team isn't officially for sale in that you don't hang a sign out in front of the stadium like you do put out a couch in front of your house.
Yeah,
but,
I got that.
But when you hire Bank of America to do the due diligence and do the process to prepare for a major acquisition like that, the answer is yes. That is your way of pulling up your skirt and saying, hey, boys, I'm ready to flirt. And it's important, too, because the actions taken by the local government and pretty soon the actions taken by the federal government will reflect an urgency that now kind of lends some evidence as to why Dan Snyder made that move, initiated the actions with Bank of America. I absolutely think they're on the selling block. The question is, one, is he willing to give up the entirety of the franchise? I think he's going to have to. But two, the price tag of this team is going to be enormous. I'm expecting it to be $7 billion. And with that, it's going to change North American sports. It's going to be one of the most significant moments. The Denver Broncos getting sold for $5 billion was important, but it really didn't change sports. The Commanders getting $7 billion will, because that means the Patriots and the Cowboys and some other very prominent franchises, you could argue, are worth $10 billion. And when you have any company that has an asset that's worth $10 billion and it's one of 32 assets, oh my God, the money, the power, the influence. It's just another statement that like the NFL is going nowhere. It is the strongest, what was I going to say? The strongest lobbying group in the United States, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah, just doing a quick search. Obviously nothing official, but the estimated report is kind of what you said. There's 7 billion is the estimated report.
I expect it to be 7 billion, if for no other reason than there's so much competition to get into NFL ownership that in a franchise like this, like the Denver Broncos, great organization. There's a lot of reasons why Mr. Walton, Sam Walton wanted to go buy that. It's a great purchase. But the difference between Washington and Denver is substantial. And the money you're going to get, they're going to build a new stadium. That organization, Washington, will go from a laughingstock to one of the premier organizations, maybe not in record, in wins, but certainly in terms of value overnight. And like I said, the Eagles, the Giants, the Jets, maybe not the Jets because they share a stadium, but the Patriots, the Cowboys, a number of other franchises, you can just tack on an extra couple billion, and that's the space they're going to be in. It's going to change sports. It's going to change who gets into sports ownership too. I'm really curious who's going to be in this ownership group, whoever buys it. There's talk of Kevin Durant, Jay-Z, trying to get in with Jeff Bezos. I'm forgetting his name now. There is a African American comedian who's become a media mogul. He owns the Weather Channel. What's his name? It's like Byron. What's his name? Hold on one second. The Weather Channel owner. The Allen Media Group. What's his name? Allen Media Group. Byron Allen. Byron Allen is a billionaire. I believe he's a billionaire. Either that or a very, very wealthy millionaire who was trying to buy the Denver Broncos. He was trying to become the first African American primary owner in the NFL. I would love to see him emerge as a potential candidate as well. He's been pushing the NFL to get in for years. So there's just going to be a lot of bidders. Obviously, Jeff Bezos is going to bring that Amazon money bag to the table, but it's going to change sports. And it's one of the reasons why a game like tonight, it all matters. This TV money, getting ESPN, getting Monday Night Football, this is how you get to 7 billion. It's through games in prime time where the country is going to be watching. I bet this game is going to get a fantastic rating, even though it's not going to necessarily be a great game. Really speaks to the business of football. I know we've kind of deviated from what, the Monday Night Football game. That's kind of the intention of this Monday night space. Just kind of shoot the shit and talk about things that come up. Getting back to the game, Lope, is there any best bet that you have for the night? We're 20, 40 minutes from game time. Give me one best bet that you have.
AJ Brown anytime touchdown. I think that's pretty much a lock. I know it's not high on the odds, but I think it's a sure thing.
5 touchdowns in his last 3 weeks. So pretty solid going off the trends. Adam, one best bet.
I'm going to say Washington plus 11. Like I mentioned before, their last 5 games have been really tight. It's a divisional game on a national stage. Double-digit points in the NFL are hard to cover. Not that Philly is obviously more than capable of doing it, but Washington, like Minnesota, finds a way to hang around games. And taking the dogs this year with these double-digit points has been, like you mentioned earlier, a pretty high percentage. So Washington plus 11 is my best bet.
All right, and Blees, I know you're the man who's up for it all. Blees, give me one best bet that you have for this game, if you got one.
One best bet for this game at Washington definitely covers this, and I would buy it the other way. I would buy it the other way, that they cover even closer. Like I think Adam said, they just keep playing close games, and I think Heineke is that quarterback that will keep it close. So yeah.
So you think it's like a 8-point finish, 7-point finish?
Yeah, I would say within a touchdown.
I like it. Well, you guys are all giving me a reason to believe in my parlay bet tonight. I appreciate that. Wishing you all well in your bets tonight. I am going to go around one more time. Also, I want to be able to talk about yesterday's bets just as we close it out. Lope Give me one ticket yesterday that you cashed that made you so happy that you got it right.
The Chargers, definitely. That was about all I got right. I have no clue still how the Cowboys lost that game after being up 28-14, and I'm confused how Jeff Saturday beat Josh McDaniels. I just don't know how the Raiders are going to be able to run that back. Either Derek Carr or McDaniels has to go.
Oh, Derek Carr is gone. Derek Carr should be, but Derek Carr is. He should have been taken to the pound a while ago. That dog is done. He doesn't have it. I think he's been overrated for years, but I think he's finally proven it. That said, Josh McDaniels, you're not a good head coach. Like, period. Like, we have enough of a sample size. You should go back to being an offensive coordinator. If he got fired right now by the Raiders, he'd be the Patriots offensive coordinator by tomorrow morning. I think that's what that's what he should be in the NFL. That's at least my take. Adam, what's one bet that you had from yesterday that you're hanging up on a mantle because you're so proud of it?
Well, real quick before I get to that Colts Vegas game we talked yesterday, that was the one thing I was nervous about is who's going to play quarterback for the Colts. You know, it was Irsay. Like I said, if he didn't nail Ellinger's name to the wall and said he starts every game the rest of the year, Saturday was going to come in there and do something different. So when Ryan got the start and I saw that made me feel uneasy about us. I'm glad I just stayed away from that game altogether. But you're right, that is just a train wreck in Oakland or in Las Vegas with McDaniels for sure. But the one bet I mentioned before, like low Chargers was good for me. But the one bet I really liked yesterday that no one seemed to be on top of was Dalvin Cook over 72.5 rushing yards against Buffalo. Like I mentioned, the last 3 games, Buffalo gave up 160 yards on the ground, and it was slogging it out for a while, but then he busted off that 81-yard run to bring that one home. So I was pretty happy to see Dalvin Cook go over 72.5.
I got to give you credit, Adam. You called that yesterday, and you said, I know that the Bills have what looks like a really good rush defense, but in their last couple of weeks, they've allowed a lot of rushing yards. Dalvin Cook, I'm going to take the over. I remember hearing it, and I went, nah, that dude's going to be wrong. I did a video earlier this week. Dalvin Cook is a sit in fantasy, and I was ready to be right, Adam. I was going to call you out. I was getting myself all prepared, all fluffed up. Especially, you watch that game, and he was doing okay, but like I thought I was pretty good on the under. And then he had that one mega run, and I went, fuck. Adam is going to totally call that up. So good on you, Adam. Glad that ticket cashed. One ticket I was really proud of yesterday, if I can toot my own horn, I took Saquon Barkley over 95.5 total rushing yards. And that's one of those where when you bet it, you're like, man, I don't know if I feel great about this, even though all the stats suggest I should feel good. And then you go on a show like we did yesterday morning and you tell other people you just made this bet. And boy, you feel yourself like out on the branch with the wind blowing in your hair because you're like, man, I'm giving people advice on how to spend their money, on how to bet a game or how to make a pick. And I'm telling them to bet over 95.5 rushing yards. The moment Saquon Barkley hit 96 yesterday and cleared it, I was dancing because it's one of those moments where, you want to be right, you want to give good advice, and you want to believe in numbers. I want to believe in the stats, the trends, what I'm reading into, and it's so nice to be validated. Going back to what we talked about a moment ago with that Raiders-Colts game, first of all, I wish I had known Matt Ryan was going to play in that game. It absolutely would have changed my bet. I 100% would have taken the Colts to cover at +6. Like that, Matt Ryan combined with Jeff Saturday is too much football knowledge to let that game be a blowout. Like they just would have kept it conservative. And I wish I had known. I thought it was Sam Ehlinger. That really threw me for a loop. That said, Josh McDaniels, you just got beat by a guy who hasn't coached above high school and just came off an ESPN set. What the fuck is going on with your team? What is with your play calling? Why can't you make Devontae Adams like the megastar he is? How is it Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona can get DeAndre Hopkins back? Everyone knows DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the number one target the entire game. And yet Hop still goes off. But Devontae Adams doesn't. Like he did yesterday, so don't get me wrong. But I'm just incredibly disappointed that like the Raiders week in, week out, I don't know what I'm getting from them offensively. Defensively, I know they're a total crapshoot. But offensively, the Raiders should be good. Like the Raiders should be a good offensive team. Not great, but good. I am so disappointed in them. I think they're the biggest loser of the season, if I'm being honest. Like, a lot of teams I expected to lose. Like, I expected the Texans to lose. I expected the Cardinals to be crap. I thought the Raiders were like a borderline playoff team. I've got so much egg on my face. It's disgusting. I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I had actually the two big preseason props I played was Miami and Vegas to make the playoffs because I thought Vegas getting Devontae. I've watched Devontae for the last 5, 6 years in Green Bay, and he's an absolute game changer. You cannot have Devontae Adams on your offense and not just be a powerhouse. I mean, not granted, Aaron Rodgers is a lot better than Derek Carr, but Devontae Adams will take over a game. He catches everything. Like you can use him in so many different facets. And I have a hard time believing that McDaniels, all the years under Belichick, maybe he's just not. He's just good. There's guys in this league that are just good coordinators that aren't good head coaches.
That's right. There are guys in this league who are just good at their job. They're good at their vertical. They know how to call plays. They know how to operate their players in quarterback, running back, what? But they don't know the entire scheme. And I felt and have felt for weeks like games get away from the Raiders to that very point, Adam. Like games get away from them as if the head coach isn't paying attention, as if there isn't someone overseeing the entire operation going, hey guys, we're losing momentum. Like we're about to lose this game and doesn't rein it in. I haven't seen that from him. And one note to go back to Sean McVay, I know we brought him up earlier. I love that Sean McVay in his first year or first couple of years as head coach of the Rams, he made himself the offensive guy and said, when the defense is on the field, Wade Phillips, that's you. Because if I try to be both offensive coordinator and head coach to the defense at the same time, I will let us down. I wonder if Josh McDaniels did that or if he's trying to be all things all at once. He's not capable of doing it. Like, just own the offense. Make the offense a top 8, top 7 offense. Other than that, find some good assistant coaches and let them handle shit because you can't do it, Josh.
Man, 100%. I mean, that's why you hire these guys and put a good team around you, right? To let them do their job. You can't, as a head coach, you can't oversee every single thing on this football team, and that's why you have these guys and coordinators in positions that you have to rely on them. You can't be in every single linebacker meeting and every single wide receiver meeting.
That's right.
That's why you pay these guys to be there, to be coaches.
And situational football has as much to do about acknowledging the situation as knowing what to do after it. If Josh McDaniels isn't paying attention enough to the game, he's letting his team down. Meanwhile, if he's not coaching the offense to the full extent, he's letting the team down. He needs to separate some of his duties. He needs to delegate. The Raiders are a mess. And the problem is, this is a time when the Raiders should be emerging. I talk about the Commanders. If they got new ownership, they'd get a new stadium. Washington football would just emerge. Las Vegas Raiders football should be entering its prime right now. Instead, they've had a number of terrible draft classes where they've gotten no real talent other than like Max Crosby. Like, they really haven't developed players through the system. Their offensive line, where they committed a lot of draft capital, that didn't amount to much. Josh Jacobs, like, 1 week he's great, 1 week he's average. I don't know what to expect from him. Like, are you actually a top 10 running back, or are you just a back? Like, please hit me with some knowledge here before I go off.
Yeah, and I just, really, it comes back to the Patriots when I look at how many plays that Brady audibled, and it's like he probably saw like, no, Josh McDaniels, I'm not going with that play. I'm audibling. And now he went from having Tom Brady check his plays to Derek Carr, who can't read coverage like Brady can, doesn't do his homework like Brady does. And I just see like you're seeing that missing piece. And you see that with Patricia too. It's like, how much help did he have from that organization? And I feel like once they leave the coop, they kind of like a fish out of water, it feels like, with that staff. I don't know.
I mean, I think that in the post-Tom Brady Patriot era, with Tom in Tampa Bay, there's been a lot of talk about, is Bill Belichick as good a head coach as we thought? The answer is yes. Like, anyone who thinks he's not is foolish. Bill Belichick is the greatest football coach of all time, period. End of conversation. Is he the best general manager? No, he's not. And he certainly has flaws in the general manager role. but look at what he's done with crap at times. Like the Matt Castle year, the Cam Newton year, they went 7-9. They easily could have gone 9-7. Like if you remember that Seahawks game in Seattle that they almost won, like, and that was not a good team. That I actually think at times I'm more impressed by Belichick's coaching performances because he is such a bad general manager. You're going, wow, you're turning crap into diamonds more often than not. But you look about how Bill Belichick, because he's such a great head coach, he is able to handle the micro and the macro, which allows his assistant coaches to look way more capable because they're then slotted into their vertical. They know their responsibilities, but it appears as though they understand how the whole machine works. They really don't. And so Josh McDaniels is pulled out of that system, or Matt Patricia is pulled out of that system. The only one who's actually done well is Brian Flores. Like maybe Bill O'Brien for like a season with the Texans, but Brian Flores was the only one who was actually having consistent success, and even he got fired. So clearly, whatever it is about being around Belichick, everyone just appears that like, man, just because you stand by mobsters, you must be tough. No, he's actually a scrawny white boy with no muscles on him. He's just standing next to the greatest fucking mafia don of all time. That's really what it is to me. And it's one of the reasons why I think that what's going on with the Patriots is actually so disappointing. I think Matt Patricia isn't that good an offensive. I put him back with the defense. He was a defensive coordinator. What's he doing coaching the offense? I don't think it's that easy.
No, I agree with that. I think that's really strange that Patricia's the offensive coordinator for sure. But I think you hit on something there. I think between Patricia when he left for Detroit and now McDaniels in Las Vegas, I think you're right. I think maybe they saw what Belichick handled and what he was involved in, what he can do, and maybe they're trying to do the same thing. And like you said, you can't. So there's only one Bill Belichick. So these guys maybe saw what he was doing, thinking that they're taking on a lot more because that's what they saw out of him. But these guys aren't capable of doing it. And one thing I thought was interesting was Rich Bisaccia, when he took over last year, when Gruden got let go, he was a team guy. All the players really liked him. I don't think he was as a head coach guy, but to my point, like I like having him in Green Bay and he's slowly turning our special teams around. But to me, like Josh McDaniels could have came in there and I would have retained him on my staff. I would have retained him as my right-hand guy. He had the locker room.
Tough.
He has the knowledge.
Really, really tough, though, to tell a guy who was not just the interim head coach, but someone who wanted to get rid of that interim tag and wanted to be named the full head coach. Tough to be like, hey, do you mind staying on and being my special teams coordinator? I just think challenging.
It is. But I think if you would have gave him a higher position, like they give like the
assistant head coach,
exactly, offensive coordinator, assistant head coach. I think that was a guy that he should have sat down and done anything he could to retain him because I think he could have been a mentor behind the scenes for Josh McDaniels to make sure that the second chance of coaching goes right.
I don't know though, Adam. As much as I want to. What you're describing, I want to believe in, but it's a little too Disney fairy tale-ish kind of in how it will come together. Because I also think, okay, Josh McDaniels retains him, keeps him on a staff, assistant head coach like you described, which in theory sounds amazing. Then Josh McDaniels gets out to the start that he's had this year, and they're struggling. How can you, as a head coach or as an owner, allow for the media to have the easy storyline of, should we replace the head coach with the guy who was the interim head coach? Like, doesn't that apply additional pressure that Josh McDaniels, the guy he replaced, could replace him? Like, doesn't that create some drama that's just unnecessary?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, you put it that way. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree with that.
It's unfortunate because I actually was happy the Raiders didn't retain him as head coach. I don't think he's actually head coach material. And I think sometimes we see kind of like what we did earlier in the year with Carolina Panthers. Like they fire their head coach, the interim comes in, they win a couple games, and everyone's like, hey, they're really believing in this guy. Like they've got some new fight to them because they have the interim head coach. Like they're all in this together. And then they remove the interim tag. And so they give a guy who is like an okay coordinator or like a decent coordinator, they put him in charge of the entire system. And then what happens in that guy's first year as head coach? They usually shit the bed. Like you don't actually stumble upon a great coordinator in your own system, promote them, and all of a sudden they're a great head coach. You usually have to go find that guy. And I feel like that was a good thing that the Raiders went and found someone else. It's just clear Josh McDaniels isn't a good head coach. Like between Denver and between Las Vegas, this dude just doesn't win when he's in charge.
Yeah, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. He left, went to Denver, came back to New England. Like we said before, you're a better coordinator than the head coach. He has probably an offensive coordinator job for life in New England, as
Oh,
long as
for sure.
Belichick's there.
And
Right?
not just that, Robert Kraft loves him. Like the what's well known within the New England area is that Robert Kraft is the one that actually got Josh to stay, not Bill Belichick. When Josh McDaniels, this was the one thing I actually loved about this Raiders Colts game, and I mentioned it on Sunday. I mentioned some videos early last week. I just love the soap opera drama of it all, like the guy who turned down the Colts that made the hire for Frank Reich, that then meant that, Frank Reich got fired and Jeff Saturday becomes head coach, plays against Josh McDaniels, who set this whole thing off, in the first game. That was just like so juicy. But Josh McDaniels would have joined the Colts if not for Robert Kraft offering him the most money of any offensive coordinator in the NFL. Robert Kraft went to McDaniels, said, I'm going to pay you more than any other coordinator. And when Belichick retires, you will take the helm. That was understood. It is known within New England that happened. And so, not only did Josh McDaniels leave that, cushy offensive coordinator role in New England, but he also then turned around and he's no longer the successor to Belichick. So it kind of interesting because, to your point, he had it all set up. He just had to wait, and he wasn't willing to do that. He ran off to the Raiders.
Yeah, maybe he goes back. When he gets let go from Las Vegas, they get the band back together. Patricia slides back to defensive coordinator.
Oh, my
McDaniels
God. You are
slides back to offensive
describing my
coordinator.
wet dream, Adam. As a New England Patriots fan, that's what I want. All I need is then a 35-year-old Tom Brady to step through that door and Larry Bird to join the Boston Celtics, and I've got my life together. But that said, that the only game we haven't talked about that is of any significance that we should before we end this space. By the way, this was a lot of fun. I'm hoping on Mondays we do this, probably on Thursdays too. Just a more casual space, not as much stats, not as much statistics, just kind of riffing about shit. But one other game that we got to talk about, Bills Vikings. What a game. Let's start where it matters. Justin motherfucking Jefferson. That dude is a beast. The catch was amazing. The overall performance was amazing. Certainly brought back memories of Randy Moss, but he's not built like a freak. He just plays like one. That was one of the best performances. And what was funny is Stephon Diggs went toe-to-toe with him. No one kind of talked about it, but Stephon Diggs put up monster numbers. That really was a heavyweight of wide receiver ones. And I just can't believe that the Bills lost. I don't know what they were doing on the goal line. I don't understand what the play call was. The center QB exchange, everything about that was just awful. But it was so funny watching that game. It was both epic and a disaster all at the same time.
I'm definitely happy the Vikings won. Dolphins are in first.
Well, yeah,
in the
fins
AFC.
up, Miami Dolphins fan. Yo, don't get too used to that spot, Lope.
But I guess it begs the question: is Justin Jefferson the best wide receiver in the league, or is it Tyreek Hill?
No, the answer is yes, because Jamar. No. Tyreek Hill is the greatest cheat code in the league. Tyreek Hill is not the greatest wide receiver. Justin Jefferson is, and it's only because Jamar Chase is injured right now. I think Tyreek Hill, I'd put him in a separate category. I don't think of him as the best wide receiver. I think of him as the best, Madden created player. He's just freakish. He's the shortest guy in the field and somehow outleaps every defensive back. He's the fastest guy in the field. He has unbelievable route running. Tyreek Hill, you're probably right. Tyreek Hill actually is probably the best. That said, I'd also put up a case for D-Hop. Hopkins, is just crazy. The dude is so talented. We also saw, Adam brought it up, Devontae Adams. He had some catches yesterday where he got open and he's standing 3 yards away from the defender, looking square at him, and he dodges him and gets another 7-8 yards. So, there are a lot of great wide receiver in this league. I think Justin Jefferson kind of owns the crown based off of yesterday's performance.
I'd have to go with D-Hop. He's got some of the best catches I've seen. And one stat the only stat he says he cares about is his catches for first down. And I think he leads since he entered the league. He really puts an emphasis on moving the chains. And so it's really incredible. Like if you look at his catches, how many go for first down, and like how he is able to do it. I mean, it's truly incredible. And I put like Tyreek Hill in that same position as like Debo Samuel, like a great
Yeah,
utility player.
I completely agree with you, and I put Debo Samuel like you said it exactly right. I put them both in that category of if I were to go into Madden and create a player, they'd probably come out like either Tyreek Hill or Debo Samuel. They can do it all. They're super fast. They have amazing hands. I could put them at wide receiver. I could put them at running back. I could put them on special teams. They just do it all. I bet that I could put them at quarterback, and they'd probably have a good day. We're closing in on kickoff for Monday Night Football. I want to make sure everyone's able to get their bets in because we gave out a lot of good player props and a lot of good things to put some cash on. Adam, I so appreciate you becoming a consistent member of this space. As you know, we want to